Hey everybody, my name is Graham Brown and welcome to this How to Podcast course. This is equally for people who want to get started and people who have started. So there are tips, technical insights and interviews in this course for you to help you get up the learning curve. Now, if you haven't seen me before, I host PITCHDECK podcast. I've produced possibly over 400 episodes in that series alone. And I've been podcasting for, well, more or less 10 years, back when it wasn't even a thing. I know it's a thing now with many of these acquisitions, Spotify, Gimlet, and so on. So a lot of people interested in podcasting, rightly so. It's getting its due credit. So how do you get started? Because it is actually a lot harder than it looks. But with the right support, the right information, you can get through the podcast hump, the valley of death. I see a lot of podcasts get derailed along the way because they just don't, well, the hosts just don't understand what's involved in building a podcast and growing it long term. So hopefully with a bit of preparation up front, it's a bit like landing a plane. If you get all the information right in the approach, it's a smooth landing. You don't want to sort of be coming in at an angle. So the purpose of this course is really to help you just kind of realign and get the perfect landing for your podcast so you can get started. So without further ado, let me talk about what's in this course. So I'm joined by a student, Anne. And Anne, before this course, didn't have any idea how to podcast, but she came to me and said, I want to start a podcast. So I said, fine, let's work together. I'll help you get started and I'll onboard you on the first few episodes. So we talk about that process, and it's an open conversation between me and Anne, unrehearsed. And we section that up in terms of her progress from before getting started to buying the microphones to, you know, feedback on the first couple of interviews and so on. Each of those conversations takes place as a video, which you can access for free on this course. And below that, there is a section where I add, if there are specific sort of more in zoom in context, so telescoping into the specific areas of content. Those won't be video, those will probably be audio files and PDFs and so on, which I've created sort of a, you know, extra content to really give you some background and context to the conversation that we're having. For example, equipment lists and so on. To get those, all you need to do is just give me your email address in the opt-in box and you can get access to all that free. And best of luck to you. My contact details will be in the course, so really looking forward to hearing from you in terms of your progress. Just let me know if you've got started. Just send me a shout and say, hey, Graham, I've started my podcast. What do you think? If you have specific questions about your podcast journey, like, for example, typical one is microphones. Should I use lapel mics, dynamic mics, condenser mics? Should I build a studio? What recording software could I use? And so on. Love to hear your questions, your feedback as well, if you have an update on the content in the course. And if you're looking for premium services, so everything I'm giving away here is free because I want to build a podcast community. I want to help podcasters. I want to give podcasters a voice. But it's also my business. So, you know, I have a studio here in Singapore, which you can rent, hire. We have agency production services. If you have a client, for example, who wants to create a podcast. So we have all that as well to support you, whether it's for your own podcast or if you are, for example, pitching a client and you need some sort of firepower, the heavy lifting that we can do, all that sort of the back office of podcasting, if you like. So that exists as well. So it's all there for you. Happy to hear your progress. Shoot me an email or a LinkedIn message and let's get started.